Okay, I've got all the rafters, roof rafters cut, and you can see below them I've got what's called hurricane ties on there. They're 16 inches on center. That's important. I've got some different ties for the ends here, but everything needs to be 16 inches on center, and I'll show you why. Okay, so here we go. You can see that they're all placed. So what I've got to do here is run a chalk line, make sure all these are aligned properly, and then I've got to put blocking in here, and that's a 14.5-inch piece of wood in here. I'm going to be using scrap pieces of wood. You can see there's some down there. There's some 2x8s, 2x10s or 12s. Anyway, I'll have to rip those down. But why blocking is so important is I have to maintain 16 inches all the way. Okay, and here, let's see if we can find one. You can see some of these are like spaghetti. You can see them kind of curve. Well, what happens is you've got a 4x8 sheet of plywood, and you nail that 16 inches on center. So if you take a 48-inch piece of plywood, the seam will come right in the middle. And then if you have another piece of plywood coming up here, those two want to meet right in the middle of the stud, or in this case, the beam, so that you can nail it down. And if it doesn't, then you can't nail it to anything, and there's no support for that piece of wood. So it's very important that everything be 16 inches on center. Now, some of the end stuff, I'm going to have to rip a 4x8 sheet of plywood because it's just too long, but that's okay. But I don't want to do it on every single one. You want to be able to put a 4x8 sheet of plywood up there, line up the seams, and nail it. Have there a stud right below it, or in this case, have a rafter right below it. So anyway, that's why we use blocking. And you can see this is what I've got to do to each and every one. Is I've got a clamp from the top, clamp from the bottom, and I nail it from both sides here. And then the other ones offset a little bit, because obviously if they're lined up together, I can't get to the board there to nail it. So that's why we plus it strengthens it. So that's why we use blocking. All right. So I guess as long as we're learning you stuff, they don't make a 2x4, a 2x8, and a 2x10, a 2x12. Here's a 2x8. It's actually 7 3/8, but some of it varies. 7 1/4. And here you go. That's not 2, that's 1.5. Here's a 2x10 or a 2x12. Okay, it's about 11 3/8, 11 1/4. So none of it's right. Here's 2x4. Yeah, it's not a 2x4, it's a 2x3.5. And I don't know, it just varies. I don't know what happened along the way, but now when you work on old homes, like those homes I did in Montana, they actually have 2x4s in dimensional lumber. But yeah, so that's another problem. The lumber is never consistent